Hello and welcome back to the mat. My name is Tati, and in today's Tapas or self-discipline themed class, we'll be flowing through many restorative yin classes while also focusing on the fire inside. So as a reminder, this is part of a 10-part series where we investigate the Yamas and the Niyamas, which are the ethical practices on the mat as well as off the mat. The Yamas and the Niyamas form the first two limbs of yoga, and by practicing these off the mat, we can help our spiritual development. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do that. It really helps support my work. And in terms of props for today's class, you might like to have a bolster or a pillow or two, or a rolled up blanket if you don't have a bolster. And with that, I'd say let's get started in our Tapas Niyama class, the third of the Niyamas. So finding a comfortable seated position with a nice tall spine, shoulders relaxed away from the ears, and just arriving in your practice now. Letting the stresses of the day roll off the shoulders. Coming to the body and bringing the mind into the present space. We'll be beginning today's class with a breathing exercise called kapalbhati, which is a quite strong and fiery breath. So if for whatever reason you have any pain in your abdomen or you get lightheaded very easily, please skip this and just take nice deep breaths in through the nose all the way into the belly, and then exhale out again through the nose. So taking these nice deep yogic breaths. And for those of us who will be joining in kapalbhati, what we're going to do is always inhale in through the nose and exhale through the nose. So making sure that you can breathe clearly through your nostrils. Again, if at any point this practice becomes too strong for you or you feel lightheaded, please pause and return to a natural breathing. It can be helpful to place both hands on the middle belly, so just underneath the solar plexus. And then with every exhalation, forcefully exhaling the air, and by gently pressing, just very gently pressing the hands into the belly, it can help with the exhalation. So inhale through the nose and exhale. So it's a little pumping action. So we'll be doing 5 of those and then take a little break and then doing a few more sets after that. So inhale in through the nose and exhale. And release, coming back to a natural breath, just for 2 breaths. And then repeating 5 to 10 times kapalbhati. And you'll see that you can do this as fast or as slow. So returning back to a natural breath. And then doing the last 5 to 10 breaths of kapalbhati, feeling that heat in the body start to awaken. And release, coming into our first yin pose of the class. So the left knee is bent and bringing the right knee to stack on top. So the knees are stacked on top of each other, right on top of left, feet pointing away from the body in shoelace pose. And keeping the spine nice and tall, finding length. And also the option to round forward, finding shoelace pose. And tapas, which is the third niyama, translates traditionally from the word austerity or discipline, and its root Sanskrit word means tap or burn. So it's all about a fiery sense of self-discipline, of passion. So a little bit opposite to what you would expect in a yin class. But for some of us, actually challenging ourselves, finding the discipline is in the more slow paced, finding the silence rather than challenging ourselves into arm balances and headstands. So releasing out of your shoelace pose, bringing both feet onto the mat, and then gently windscreen wiping the knees from side to side. Noticing the difference between the two sides. And then finding shoelace on the other side. So right knee is on the bottom, bent with the foot towards the hip. And the left knee stacks on top of the right. Finding a tall spine or rounding forward. Cultivating a sense of tapas is there for a sense of self-discipline, passion, as well as the courage to burn away any impurities. These can be physical, mental, or emotional impurities. So just by finding your way onto the mat today, you've already displayed some tapas or self-discipline, because just making the time to arrive here can be difficult enough. Releasing out of shoelace pose, finding those windscreen wiper legs again. And then bringing the right knee bent at 90 degrees behind you, the left knee bent at 90 degrees in front of you. So coming into deer pose. And this is also called 90-90 pose because you have the 90 degrees in each of the knees. The discipline we learn on our yoga mats can be a really great lesson to take off the mat and into our everyday lives. So when we breathe through challenging situations in our yoga practice, or we're trying to bring our wandering mind back to the present moment over and over again, we're learning to deal with challenging situations, and by having the courage not to listen to the voices in our head that tell us that we're not strong enough or that we're not good enough, this element of tapas can help burn away these impure thoughts and can lead us to more self-trust and inner strength. Releasing out of deer pose, so just bringing the feet to the ground with the knees bent and letting the knees fall over to the other side. So now the right knee is bent forward and the left knee is bent backwards. So the left shin is parallel to the long end of the mat and the right shin is parallel to the front end of the mat. You might feel into the core muscles, the solar plexus area, where our Manipura chakra lies, which is associated with self-discipline, where our fire or Agni, so our inner fire, sits. And this fire is also linked to transformation. So in transformation, generally what happens is we allow change to happen, we step outside of our comfort zone, and we practice poses that we're not comfortable in or confident in, and maybe even a little bit afraid. And through that, we begin to grow and learn about ourselves. Inhale, coming out of deer pose, and then both feet away from the body, finding a straddle position. You are welcome to slide the bolster or pillow with the short edge towards your pelvis in your dragonfly, and then rounding the upper spine, resting on the bolster, or simply resting the hands on the earth. Feeling this deep hamstring stretch, sending the breath throughout the whole body. And an invitation to practice tapas off the mat is to choose a practice of nourishing. So this can be either nourishing yourself through eating, through meditating, contemplating, or anything else that impacts the quality of your essence. How can you put yourself, quote unquote, into the heat with enthusiasm? So this is any situation where you feel a little bit uncomfortable or not quite as confident in. And when we're working with the element of tapas, it's important to make sure we're acting from a place of love and positivity rather than from fear. And then gently pressing yourself out of dragonfly, moving the bolster to one side if you were practicing with a bolster, bringing the legs slowly together and rolling onto the belly, pressing the pelvis into the mat, backs of the feet on the mat, and sliding the forearms parallel to one another with the elbows underneath the shoulders into Sphinx pose. Chin can be slightly tucked or closing the eyes. Nice open chest. And if this feels too strong in your lower spine, you're welcome to form a pillow with your forearms resting your forehead on your forearms. And you can also place a rolled up blanket under your belly for added support. At any time in Sphinx, if it feels like it's getting too much, you can also come back down. But notice if this is driven out of a sense of pain, of course, then you should come out of the pose. Or if you might like to practice a little bit of tapas or fiery passion to stay disciplined in the pose. So you decide where that line is for you. A third way that we can practice tapas off the mat is by practicing staying just 1 minute more in whatever unpleasantness presents itself to you. So this is practicing whether you can stand the heat of unpleasantness. And eventually, can you let the heat of unpleasantness begin to burn away your judgments, your opinions, and expectations? So again, using this tapas or fire as an element of transformation. So burning away the old to make space for the new. Releasing your Sphinx pose, big toes touching, knees are wide apart. And then arms come up and overhead, pressing the hips back and towards the heels into child's pose. So that's one option with the legs wide. You can also bring the knees together and the arms come back alongside the legs into an even more restorative version of child's pose. Releasing any tension in your hips and your spine. Breathing deeply. And perhaps as a third way to practice tapas off the mat, you might like to do a bit of journaling on this too. Try to remember a cathartic time in your life and how you're shaped by this experience. Notice the times you may have checked out from the pain and other times where you were fearless in the fire and held on to the blessing of having this experience. So seeing it again as a way of transformation rather than being engulfed by the flames, so to say. Slowly gazing forward, pressing the hands up into a tabletop position, finding a neutral spine, and then stepping the right foot forward to the outside of the right hand into dragon pose. Option to place the hands onto blocks if you need a bit of height. And also the option to take a winged dragon, so bringing the weight into the left palm, placing the right hand onto the right knee, coming onto the knife edge of the right foot. This is quite a strong pose, so again, listening to your body. And slowly releasing dragon on the right side, stepping the leg back into tabletop position. Breathing here in tabletop. And with the next inhalation, stepping the left foot forward to the outside of the left hand, sinking the hips low, hands on blocks or resting on the earth. Also the option to come down onto the forearms or finding winged dragon by coming onto the knife edge of the left foot. Left knee falls out towards the side and perhaps gently pressing the left knee with the left hand. Releasing out of dragon, finding back into all fours tabletop. Breathing here. Well done for finding the self-discipline in that pose. It can be quite challenging. And exhale, walking the hands forward, keeping the hips over the knees. and melting the chest towards the earth into melting heart pose. Placing the forehead on the earth or perhaps on a block. Keeping the chin slightly tucked, palms on the mat. And to intensify the pose, there's also an option for you to bring the chin onto the mat, gazing forward, but only do this if it feels comfortable in your neck. Again, this can be a really strong stretch. And releasing melting heart pose, coming all the way onto the belly. And for a very strong shoulder opener, we're going to stretch the right arm away from the body and then rolling onto the right hip. You might like to bend the left knee and step it behind the right leg, like a little kickstand. The left hand is next to the face, or maybe stretching it forward, or the option to wrap it around the body to rest on the lower back. So please listen to the sensations in your shoulders and back off a bit. We definitely do not want any pain in this pose. Exhale, slowly releasing, coming back onto the belly. Left arm slides away from the body at 90 degrees and finding into thread the needle on the other side. So rolling over onto the left hip. Option to bend the right knee, step it behind the left leg. Right hand can rest next to the face or stretched up and overhead. Or option to wrap it around the back to rest on the lower spine. Breathing here in the strong pose, you might feel the heat building up in the shoulders. And then exhale, slowly release out of thread the needle. Lying on your belly for a little while, bringing the forearms to stack on top of one another in a little pillow. And just taking 2 rounds of deep breath here, connecting to the earth with the belly. And for our inversion, you might like to practice this up against a wall, or you can practice with the bolster slid underneath the hips. So wherever you are, setting yourself up for an inversion by stretching the legs up into the air or against a wall. You're welcome to bend into the knees, just keeping the lower spine on the earth. Palms facing up or resting the hands on the belly. And exhale, releasing the legs slowly back to the earth. Coming down onto your back if you were using a bolster as support. And finding into happy baby. So hugging the knees into the chest and then holding onto the inside or outside of the feet. Drawing the knees in towards the armpits. Gently rocking the spine from side to side. Or resting in stillness. For our heart opener, sliding the bolster or pillow with the short edge to the base of the spine. Resting the length of the spine along the length of the bolster, opening the chest up towards the sky. You can take butterfly feet here, so bringing the bottoms of the feet to touch, knees fall away from the body, or straightening out the legs. Turning the palms up towards the sky. Melting the shoulders, melting the hips. Heart opener with butterfly feet or with straight legs. And the final way that I invite you to either journal or practice tapas off the mat is to pay attention to your daily choices. So where are you making choices that are indulgent, or where are you making choices that build your strength and your character? So I invite you to listen to your inner voice and to make choices that prepare you for the heat of life. And this can be really, really difficult, listening to your inner voice. We live in a very stimulating world where often it can feel like our inner voice is droned out. But by making time for practices like yoga, meditation, journaling, walking in nature, solitude, it gives us the opportunity to tune inwards and listen to the knowledge and wisdom that's already inside each and every single one of us. And releasing the bolster, you can find your way into a traditional shavasana, taking any final movements you need before resting the arms and the legs away from the body. Imagining golden energy at the solar plexus, so the center of the belly, spreading throughout the entire body, and then letting all of the tension melt away, resting in shavasana. And I'll call us back when it's time. Inhale slowly, starting to sense the body on the earth. Breathing deeply. Inviting movement back into the body by wriggling the fingers and the toes. Stretching the arms and legs away from one another, arms overhead. And then hugging the knees into the chest. Rolling over one side onto the fetal position. And thinking of one thing that you have some burning enthusiasm for. You might like to leave it in the comment section so we can see who in the community is enthusiastic about what in their life. And then inhale, gently pressing yourself up into a comfortable seated position, bringing the hands to rest on the knees, Breathing deeply into the belly, feeling that fire, that tapas and self-discipline. And then bringing the palms to touch, lowering the gaze. Namaste. Thank you so very much for practicing with me today. I hope that you enjoyed this Tapas Niyama class, part of the 10-part series. All of the descriptions for the practices and journal prompts that we discussed in class today are linked for you in the description box. You can also find the other classes there. If you'd like to practice some more challenging asanas, I also have some flow and twist classes linked for you. There's also the option for a more restorative yoga nidra, golden light bath, so in the theme of tapas and fire. So maybe I'll see you over there. Otherwise, I hope to see you on the mat again real soon. If you haven't already subscribed, why not click that subscribe button to join the community? And I look forward to seeing you again real soon. All my love.